The ribbon cut, but my name was not called. The crowd clapped for Alan Brooks as if the project had been his alone. Cameras flashed, and my badge with owner printed in black letters stayed pinned to my jacket but unseen. I stood off to the side, not on stage, not in the photos, while my own store opened under my partner's smile. The microphone squealed, then settled, his voice booming through the speakers while mine never reached them. My hands stayed at my sides. The Shipley Donuts box, greasy in the corners, sat forgotten on the folding table behind me. Nobody touched it. The smell of coffee turned sour in the wind. The banner dropped. My name wasn't there. A woman from the Chamber of Commerce shook Alan's hand and kissed Samantha Brooks on the cheek. Samantha held her position next to him, posing for pictures, the mayor's aide scribbling names for the paper. I stood 3 feet away but invisible, like I had wandered into someone else's event. One of my managers clapped slowly, watching me with a glance that said he understood more than he showed. A journalist from the Chronicle jotted a note, looked at me, and turned back to Alan. The scissors clicked again for another photo. I walked to the edge of the lot. The employee lot sign still stood. Bent. Sunday 6:45 a.m. The clock on the dashboard blinked while I sat in the Ford F-150 outside the store. The lot was empty except for Alan's new Lexus, parked crooked across 2 spaces near the door. I sipped gas station coffee, bitter and lukewarm, and rubbed the edge of the truck key between my thumb and finger. The lot smelled of wet asphalt. The neon sign still buzzed, half the letters out. Alan walked out with a folded slip in his hand, a blue Chase check. He waved it like proof of something he hadn't earned. He spotted me and came closer, the grin already rehearsed. He said, "You don't want this to get ugly, Richard." I replied, "It already is." He said, "Take the buyout, sign it, walk away with what's left." The paper in his hand shook slightly, not from nerves but excitement. He enjoyed the moment. Samantha's SUV idled at the curb, engine humming, her silhouette visible behind the glass. She didn't look at me. I rolled the window down halfway. My name sounded different in Alan's mouth, like he was trying it on for size. The sound carried through the lot, bouncing against the brick wall. I didn't answer. He slid the check against the window gap and held it there. I looked at the ink, the numbers, the line where I was supposed to end my roll. The false calm lasted seconds. A door opened behind us. One of the security guards, Tom, leaned against the frame, not moving. His silence pressed harder than Alan's words. The journalist from earlier walked past the sidewalk and wrote something in his book without looking up. The check touched my hand. I didn't take it. My phone buzzed once. A message from Martha. Short. No greeting. Only 4 words. Be smart. Take it. My wife was not on my side. My daughter Anna's photo stared back from the screensaver when the message closed. Her smile anchored me. I folded the check and pushed it back out the window. Alan's grin broke for a moment, teeth tight. His footsteps retreated across the wet concrete. I stayed in the truck, engine off. The lot stayed quiet. Then I heard steps behind me. Slow. Close. The folder landed on my desk with a thud. It wasn't placed there. It was dropped. Alan's handwriting stretched across the label, sloppy but deliberate. Receipts, invoices, statements. I opened it and saw numbers that didn't belong to me. My name appeared once on the header, then vanished from the pages that mattered. My age, 52, had already become the excuse they whispered in meetings. Too old, too stubborn, not fit for growth. The words circled without being spoken. Martha stood in the doorway of the office, her phone screen glowing against her palm, her face turned away. She said nothing. She stayed long enough to let me know she had been told to watch. The paper edges cut my finger. A line of blood marked the margin. I walked through the aisles of the store. Shelves full, lights humming, employees moving as if nothing had shifted. A cashier greeted me, voice flat, eyes darting to the side. A mother pushed a cart, her child staring at the badge on my chest. Owner in black letters. The boy pointed and whispered to his mother, She hushed him. My name on the badge felt heavier than the plastic. I stopped at the break room. A box of Shipley donuts sat open, half empty, glaze drying. Someone had written Alan's name across the lid. A pen mark, casual, final. My daughter's photo hung on the corkboard above the schedule. Anna, smiling with a graduation cap tilted. The photo pin pressed deep into the cork. I kept my eyes on it. I heard Alan's voice from the hall. He said, "The future doesn't wait, Richard." I replied, "Either do I." He said, then stopped, slowing us down. His footsteps faded, but the echo stayed. The sound of a stamp hit paper somewhere in the office. Sharp. Final. The echo rolled down the hall and settled into the floor. That sound stayed with me. The stamp. The sound of a decision made without me. By Thursday, a badge would vanish. The accountant avoided eye contact during the review. His hand trembled slightly when he pushed a receipt across the table. One line item marked as miscellaneous. One transaction too small to matter, unless it wasn't. He cleared his throat, didn't speak, and left the room quickly. James, my lawyer, leaned back in the chair, silent for a long time. He flipped one page, paused, then tapped the line twice with his pen. He said, "That one? That's where it starts." I replied, "It's nothing." He said, "It's everything." The receipt felt heavier than the paper it was printed on. My thumb rubbed the corner until the ink smeared. Outside, Samantha laughed with someone on the phone. The sound cut through the door, sharp as glass. I followed the trail through the folders, the ledgers, the boxes of documents. Each page carried a shadow. Alan's initials appeared where mine should have been. Chase statements with balances that shifted too neatly. Vendor payments rerouted, checks signed with curves that almost matched mine. Almost. The receipts piled until the desk sagged. Martha placed a cup of coffee near my elbow. The screen of her phone lit again. She flipped it face down. She said, "Maybe compromise is better." I replied, "Compromise is surrender." She left without lifting the cup. The coffee cooled untouched. My key pressed into my palm until the teeth left marks. The confrontation came in Alan's office. He spread 3 receipts on the table like cards. His grin returned, casual, sharp. He said, "You can sign now, or you can lose more later." I replied, "That's not yours to decide." He said, "It already is." The room stayed silent long enough for the fluorescent light to buzz. James leaned forward. He didn't look at Alan. He looked at me. He said, "Richard, sign it." The words landed heavier than the receipts themselves. My hand froze above the page. The sound of the clock ticked once. The paper waited. The pen rolled toward me. The room smelled of ink and dust. The words stayed between us. Sign it. The Chase statement arrived in a plain envelope. No return address, no note inside. Just the folded paper and the numbers that stripped me bare. The balance had been cut in half. Transfers I hadn't made, signatures I hadn't written, initials too familiar to dismiss. Alan's hand again, disguised but obvious. The blue Chase logo stared from the corner, colder than ink. My thumb rubbed the key in my pocket, the same nervous habit I had carried for decades. The metal pressed deep into my skin until the teeth drew lines that burned. Anna's photo lay on the desk beside the statement. Her smile froze against the frame. I turned the picture face down. I drove the Ford F-150 to the office before sunrise. The parking lot was empty, the employee lot sign still bent. My boots echoed against the pavement. A security guard nodded at me but didn't speak. His silence carried more weight than words. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered. A box of donuts sat on the counter again, Alan's name scribbled across the lid like ownership. I lifted the lid, saw only crumbs, and closed it with a snap. The sound echoed through the hall. I walked into the meeting room where James waited. His tie was loosened, his face calm. He said, "They've overreached?" I replied, "They've stolen?" He said, "Which means we can bury them." The paper rustled in his hand as he slid another receipt toward me. It matched the Chase statement. The trail was no longer hidden. It was a path cut straight to Alan's desk. At home, Martha moved quietly, her phone always within reach. She placed her glass on the counter without looking at me. Linda and Frank visited once that week. My mother rearranged the chairs at the table. My father chewed silently, his eyes never lifting. Anna lingered at the doorway, her backpack on one shoulder. She said, "You'll fix it, right?" I replied, "I will." Her silence stretched, longer than her question. The fridge hummed in the kitchen. The bulb above flickered. I didn't move. The letter from James came late Friday night. Hand-delivered, sealed, heavier than its size suggested. Martha took it from the courier and set it on the counter without a word. The envelope carried no logo. I broke the seal, unfolded the paper, and read the opening line. Court date confirmed. Documents filed. Alan named as respondent. Samantha listed beside him. Their signatures marked in black ink, bold and arrogant. I folded the letter once, slid it into my jacket, and locked the drawer. The key left fresh marks on my palm. The television clicked off in the living room. Silence settled. I stared at the drawer until the hum of the fridge returned. Sleep left me. Nights stretched into hours without rest. I lay in the dark, the letter's weight pulling at my thoughts. Every creak in the house sounded louder. The wind pressed against the windows, branches scraped the siding. I sat at the table with the letter unfolded, the Chase statement beside it, Anna's photo propped against the glass. Her smile cut through the dark. The key turned in my hand, round and round, metal against skin. By Tuesday morning, the marks had deepened into welts. Reporters started calling. One showed up at the store, notebook in hand. He asked nothing at first, only wrote as customers passed. His eyes tracked me when I walked by. Employees spoke quieter when I entered. A manager folded his arms, his lips pressed shut. I caught Samantha in the aisle once, her phone held high as if documenting inventory. She lowered it quickly, smiled, and walked away. The hum of the refrigeration units filled the silence she left. Anna sat with me at the kitchen table one night. She said, "They're trying to erase you." I replied, "Then we'll write it louder." She nodded once, reached across, and placed her hand on mine. The paper crinkled beneath her palm. The Chase logo, the court letter, the receipts. She didn't look away. Outside, rain hit the porch. A flyer stuck to the door. I stared at it until it sagged from the water. The week ended with another delivery. A thin envelope, no return address. Inside, a single page. A court notice. The date circled in red. Alan's name bold again. My pen rolled off the desk and clattered against the floor. The fridge hummed once more. The bulb flickered. I didn't move. The next sound would come from the gavel. The bailiff called my full name, and the courtroom air shifted. Richard Hale, 52, owner of Hale Markets. The title sounded foreign now, like it belonged to a stranger. I placed the pen flat on the table. Its weight was nothing, but the sound of it clicking once against the wood carried. Alan sat across the aisle in his new suit, the tie too bright for the room. Samantha leaned close, whispering into his ear, her laugh sharp and out of place. James slid a folder in front of me, his finger tapping the first page once. I didn't move. The judge looked tired. He spoke slowly, his words drawn out. He said, "This matter concerns ownership, fraud, and fiduciary duty." Alan adjusted his jacket, already smirking. Samantha touched his wrist, steadying him. I pressed the pen cap down again. The first witness, a store manager, walked in and spoke about payroll delays, missing shipments, and late checks. He never looked at me. He stared at Alan the entire time. The jurors leaned forward. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the pause after every answer. James stood and cut in. He said, "Isn't it true you signed receipts that were blank?" The manager froze, hesitated, then admitted it. The crack showed, but Alan leaned back as if it didn't matter. Samantha scribbled something on her notepad, tearing the page too hard. Midday, the judge called recess. Outside the courtroom, a reporter pushed a mic toward me. He said, "Do you regret trusting him?" I replied, "Not yet." The camera light blinked red, catching every line on my face. Anna stood behind me, silent, her arms folded. Back inside, the false calm returned. Alan's lawyer waved copies of contracts, each marked with my name. He said, "Mr. Hale, is this your signature?" I replied, "It is." He said, "Then you admit responsibility." James slammed another receipt down. The paper shook. He said, "Look again." That stamp was added after. The judge frowned, leaning slightly toward Alan's side. For a moment it felt over. The weight pressed down, my grip on the pen slick. Alan smiled wide, confident the game was his. Then the door opened. Anna walked forward, a folder clutched in her hand. She spoke clearly, her voice steady. She said, "These are text messages between Alan and the accountant. They planned the falsified stamps." Gasps rolled through the courtroom. The judge took the folder, scanning fast, his brow hardening. Alan's smile broke. Samantha's hand slipped from his wrist. James didn't need to speak. The silence worked louder than his voice. The judge finally looked up. He said, "This changes everything?" The pen lay in my hand again. I clicked it once, the sound final. Subscribe if you want more stories about real men who don't scream. They act. Coldly. To the end. Would you have stopped there, or gone further?